Hello, everyone. This is Pittsburgh Pat, and I'm here with Ryan Doyle, the Vertigree Table. How are you, Ryan?
So far, so good. What's up, Pat? How you doing, man?
Everything's good. This is our D&D discussion. We do this on Wednesday mornings, and because we play on Tuesday nights. And actually, usually, um, Ryan's the DM, but now he's a player, so we get to hear from the
Mhm.
player's point of view. So this is fun. So yeah, so we talk about Dungeons and Dragons in general, but we also talk about the aspects of like being a DM and preparing for that and comparing, contrast that to the player experience and how to teach new players how to play and encourage new DMs and talk about the new 2024 rules along the way. So what was your experience? What was it like sitting on the other side of the screen, even though you technically don't use a screen?
It was nice. I'm a big advocate for getting everybody to take their turn behind the Dungeon Master screen because I think it gives you a better perspective of the game. What I don't talk about as much and should practice more is like everyone who's running the game all the time should stop and be a player once in a while and gain because there's other perspectives to be gained as well. So being a player makes you a better Dungeon Master too.
So what was there a big takeaway that you had from last night, being a player that you realized like, oh my gosh, as a DM, I really learned something, or this is fresh, or I'm going to reevaluate.
I like purposefully held back for a while. One, because I have like an ingrained impulse to just like answer questions, right? Like to keep things moving.
Yeah,
And I caught myself a couple times being like, "Oh yeah, this is that," or "This is that." And I was like, "Wait, this is not my job," and I don't know if that's how it is anymore, right? Because we're running 2014, 2024. Dungeons and Dragons is in this weird transitional state before you talk about people's own like personal preferences and house rules. So I think it's very important if you are the dungeon master and you're like passing the torch to a player that you let go of that torch so they can run with it. And I think I did a pretty good job. I was very conscious of doing that last night. I was ready to do less than to do too much.
yeah, it's hard not to be, sometimes we find ourselves falling into the rules lawyering kind of thing, even though I'm not bound by the rules even as a DM, but it's hard when the answer is not immediately forthcoming from, like, say, a player asks a question and the DM is deliberating on it, thinking about it, or, you know, and as DMs, we've trained ourselves to have a ready response, or we've been in the
Mm,
situation before where we're like, oh, absolutely, flanking is no longer a thing. But we were using flanking as an optional rule in our combat system. So making judgment calls on that going forward. So basically, to set up everything for the people that are out there, Ryan, uh, for the last almost year, well, not quite a year,
mm.
we were doing Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and we advanced from level 1 to 9. And now Craig, one of the more recent additions to the group, as a player, he has volunteered to DM Vecna, I'm sorry, I say Reign of Ruin, Eve of Ruin. I just watched Oppenheimer, sorry. Yeah, Vecna, Eve of Ruin. And that's levels 10 through 20, which is going to be an adventure for us because not too many D&D campaigns go through those double digit levels, let's say. I think what's the average I've read somewhere is around level 12. Most campaigns just kind of like either peter out or just become so, players become so overpowered, it's hard for the DM to throw challenges at them. But if I haven't read a lot of Vecna because I don't want to ruin it for myself as a player, but it's my understanding that it's designed for, that level progression from 10 to 20. So
Yeah, I'm also not I'm familiar with the lore. I have not read this book, and I'm very thankful, honestly, because I've read most of most of the published 5e stuff and a lot of third party stuff too. So it's good to go in with fresh eyes. I do like I was kind of peeking. It does feel like we're in the front of the book, just
Yeah.
based on what page he's on. So it seems like we're starting at the beginning. I wasn't sure if we were jumping into the middle because we're level 10 or whatever. But I do like, I think it's the module. I don't know if it's Craig's determination, and ultimately everything's Craig's determination. I do like that we're getting intel right away. We know it's Vecna. We heard the name Kaz last night. We got some details, because like we see the emblem of the cult and it's a hand holding an eye, and I'm just like, well, does my character know what that means? Like I know what that means, but it creates this like tension of metagaming where it's just like it's a difficult mental process to be like, I'm going to pretend that I don't know and then actively try to figure it out without cheating. So I do like that it's like, oh yeah, this is Vecna. This is the cult of Vecna that you're up against. 2 hours into the game, it's like, okay, these are the stakes, these are the touchstones.
Yeah, Craig set that up really well. And like I said, I don't know how much of that's in the book, like you said, I should say, uh, because I haven't read that. But if that's set up that way in the book, good job. There basically what happens is we go into Neverwinter and the over what do they call him? The Overlord, not Overlord, but
Never Ember,
Never Ember is his name.
which is such a weird name. Yeah,
He
he's the
is
I
the
don't know.
Lord
He's the Lord.
Protector, Lord
Yeah, there you go.
Protector of Neverwinter. That's it. And he basically says, "I've heard your reputation. We need some help. There's some evil that's been detected in this crypt area, the specific crypt in the graveyard. The graveyard's not a place people go to very often, except to bury people and then get the heck out of there. Apparently, it's relatively neglected, and so we're sent in to find these four people who've gone missing, presumably kidnapped. And so the neat thing about the way they set that up is that two of them are scholars. It turns out that one of them, again, this is something I would do. I don't know if Craig did this, but one of them is an expert on Vecna. So if the
Hmm.
characters, get to that NPC, they can learn a lot about the backstory. Um, and then there's two others that are like, one's like a celebrity. She's like an actress or something like that. The other one is well, there's a scholar. Oh, the other one's like some kind of psychic traveler on the outer planes. So that was kind of interesting. I thought that was kind of cool too. So that's the other thing I like about this Vecna module is apparently we're going to learn a little bit about the the planes, and like I have to admit, like I don't know that much about them. So this will be fun to explore as a character. Um, yeah, I thought Craig did a great job. I thought we were going to have a session zero, but it turned out we jumped right in. But he went around the table and he got everybody's character's name. And as a result, we got to sort of introduce our characters to each other. But it was cool to hit the ground running. And a
Hmm.
lot of us have played together already and we're using characters we've already used. So a lot of that kind of backstory, which I like to do in my first D&D sessions, where I have the players actually like tell me a little bit about their backstory. That helps me, especially if I'm doing something that's more homebrew, to figure out how to tie in things like personal hooks. So yeah, I always like when that happens. So yeah, I thought Craig did an excellent job last night. I was really it wasn't a boring moment for me at all. So.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something to be said about hitting the ground running.
Mhm.
I'll I don't think it would have happened at our table because we've been going for a while. Although we've had people come and go.
Mhm.
I met someone last night who joined while I was off last week.
Mhm.
Someone's been there for a couple months now. Someone's been there for like 6 months. Someone's been there for 3 years. Like it's a big range. But whatever. Everyone's experienced players, play different systems. Most of us have run something or other along the way.
Mhm.
A lot of the time when you're like, all right, you guys meet for the first time here now, and there's a lot of like standoffish, I don't trust these people. Am I going to go risk my life next to them? And it's easy to see how people get there, and it's kind of boring and not very fun. So
Right.
like there's definitely value in being like, you guys are a team. You know each other very well.
Yes.
Here's the adventure. Go. And now it's yeah, that feeling each other out aspect of like, I don't trust the mysterious Strider in the corner. Like, well, who's this guy with a pipe? That's kind of fun to watch for like 5 minutes, but not to play out over 4 or 5 sessions.
Yeah. Yeah. Last week I actually had the opportunity to play as a player in an adventure league, and I was sitting next to a guy. It was only the second time he had played, and he just happened to be playing a rogue, and I was playing a rogue. So we kind of like, because of that, we decided we were going to hit it off. Like we understood each other. We would talk to each other in thieves' cant, and argue with each other and challenge each other, and uh, you know, do stupid things like there was a pit of bones, and instead of walking across the ledge to try to like doing a athletics check or an acrobatics check, we challenged each other to like just dash all the way across the bones, just like a 40-yard dash. And that ended, that like led us into complications. And his character actually ended up getting killed. I mean, he was making death saves, let's put it that way, until we could, the paladin could lay on hands. But yeah, so it turned out to be great, and we have stories to tell because of it. And I think that's the thing. It's like, and that's I'm glad you reminded me of that, because later today I'm going to be teaching a class to kids and middle school kids, and half of them have played before in my class, and the other half are new to me. So I have to find out whether they've played at all. But I do need to emphasize that point, which is like, you are all on the same team. You
Mm.
do not want to kill each other. You do not want to rob each other. You do not want to cause harm to each other. You want to make sure that you are, aligned in your objectives, and, start that out from the very start, just to make sure, because, most games are adversarial. Monopoly is a who gets all the money, right? And, Risk is who takes over the world. So it's a different kind of play, and we need to, I think especially new players need to be told that from the very start. Otherwise, they don't know, like, is the goal to like kill the dragon all by myself and take all the gold, or is it to share it around? Or, in an adventure league, they solve that, or they try to solve that by saying that everybody gets one of everything. So if there's one magic
Mm.
object, like, well, we do have that in our group, actually. There are two wands of wonder in our group, and we got to see Mike use one of those wands of wonder last night. So that was interesting. So maybe let's talk about that.
I love wild magic because I love leaving room for the dice to tell a story. I like a good like logical, like cohesive is a better word for it, world. I like the world to make sense
Yeah.
in a way. And then the gonzo-ness is like a spice on top. So like pointing this thing into the heat, and my character was in the middle. I just did like an AoE thing. So I stood in the middle and I was like, "Oh, I forgot that the party is also a threat. I got the three bad guys. I forgot about the rest of the people in the room, though, could also cause me some complications. So he shoots the wand of wonder off, and he summons a rat, but then that was like a nested result. Like he rolled something. He's okay, summoning a beast. It could have been a rhinoceros. It could have been an
Elephant.
elephant. I was rooting for elephant. And this creature is not like a summoned creature in the sense that it's like on your team. It's just like all of a sudden there's a rat here. It might start attacking you, and it did. It went after the pally.
Yeah, like jumped at his throat. Python-esque, like the rabbit. Yeah, that's fun. And I like what you said about the dice telling the story. And that's another thing that happened last Thursday at Adventure League. Was we were good at, what we were level, it was a lot, it was a tier one. So we were levels 1 through 4. So not a lot of modifiers, but the ones we were supposed to be good at, there were some unexpectedly low rolls. And even when people use like heroic inspiration or bardic inspiration, the dice still came out low several times in a row. And we actually used that phrase, the dice want to tell the story. And that's one of the things about D&D that's so much fun is that, rolling dice is fun, but having that unexpected result. Because if you just like say like I don't know, a good example, seventh C maybe, where you just say like, I'm really good at this thing, and I just happen to have the exact item I need, and I'm going to win. That's one way to play, like play the invincible hero who knows what to do. But having that random element of chance and having something unexpected, and then having, of course, the DM, if the DM's a good storyteller, to interpret that, or to throw it back to the player. So you can say, well, what happens? Like you obviously didn't connect on your attack roll. So what does this look like? And I like to do that too. I like to let the players describe. Um, Patrick's a really good at that. Like he's really good
Mm.
at describing like how he dispatches a beast or monster. And he gets really technical with it sometimes and gruesome. So that could be fun. But yeah, I just I don't know. It's interesting. What do you feel like? Like, did you learn anything from sitting at the table with a DM you haven't sat with before? Like, was there anything that Craig did that you thought, well, you know what, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna use that.
He he made a point to so we have a group text chain, but you could do it on whatever, choose your digital communication medium. Um, he took the pictures from the book, which I'll like show you guys some of the time, and like it's very one, it feels like a little kindergarten story time to be like showing the book around the table, but two, to be doing it and like covering the stat block or whatever pertinent in the rest of the map, whatever else is on that page. So he had taken the pictures, had them on his phone, and was ready to dump them into the group chat. Like, here are the images of the NPCs that you were looking for. Like, I described them to you, but also like the lore describes them to you, and this is what they look like. This is the symbol. So that was good. I don't do that. I do that in my digital games. I don't use digital tools in my in-person games, and it's huge. A picture's worth 1,000 words. There's a reason. It's a cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, and the artwork is really good. I mean, the
Hmm.
artwork in the new books, 2024 books, are amazing. The monster manual is just beautiful.
Hmm.
And so Vecna came out before that, but yeah, these are professionals that know how to illustrate. And why not avail yourself of that material? Yeah, I like that as well. And I also like that we use the group chat for something other than just talking, but it encourages that too. So like I think it'll encourage that's for us to use the group chat to discuss things with each other just by utilizing it. Yeah, I like to pass out things sometimes. I like to have physical objects.
Hmm.
Um, when there's a pearl, I'll, get like a fake pearl and throw it on the table or something to represent that. Treasure. I enjoy those kind of tactile things because very early on, when I first started DMing 5e, when the new version came out in 2014, I had a player who was, I passed out something and she says, I still have that, and she was
Hmm.
really jazzed about that. So
Hmm.
I took that as positive feedback, and so I tried to incorporate that when I DM when I can, you know. But yeah, this Vecna thing turned out to be like a good old fashioned dungeon crawl, and that's one of the things I took away from it is, and I'm going to use this in my teaching is that that's classic D&D, right? The dungeon crawl is like one of the classic things, exploring a room, finding a new room, unlocking a door. What's behind that door? But wait a minute, we forgot about this door. What's behind that door? And having something ready for the players, to investigate. And it helps, I think, with players who have those high investigation skills, high perception skills, that want to like learn a little bit more about their surroundings. It's And having a grid, we actually have a grid with markers. That's what we've been doing. Craig's been doing. He took that up as well. So having a map and having figurines. Mike is a collector and painter of
Hmm.
the figurines. So, and he loves to do that. So let's utilize those. And it makes combat interesting because of positioning and that sort of thing. And it really helps with the map really helps with visualization. You can play theater of the mind, and that's totally fine. It's a different kind of game. It's not as specific, it's not as tactical, maybe, but unless you're very descriptive. But the having the map on the board, and one of the things I do like to do with the kids is have them draw their own maps.
Hmm.
Just get out the graph paper and draw the map. That's old school. Um, and there's a reason why there's an appeal to certain players to do that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The I like theater of the mind. I do.
Mhm.
I don't think fifth edition's built for it. You can get away with it early levels a little bit, but it's a tactical war game in a lot of ways. And like the difference between being 30 feet away from somebody and 35 feet away from somebody makes a difference in a lot of cases. So you got to know having that information available for everybody on like literally on the table so we don't need to have a constant back and forth conversation about it. There's no question like what's in my head matches exactly what's in your head more or less as far as the numbers and the mechanics go. The details can be different. And I think that's why I gravitate towards what Craig is doing now of just like a beautiful map is wonderful. A bare bones, just like a line, this is a door,
Yeah.
lets me fill in that space with my imagination, which is my preference. It's not everybody's preference, but I like that lo-fi version that leaves room for me to do my thing.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there are like these sets, these kits where like they have like, dungeon walls and
Hmm.
gates and bridges and all this sort of thing. And you put them together like Legos or like a Matchbox track. And that's all really cool and expensive. But
Hmm.
you know, that's one way to play as well. Surely if somebody out there wants to like donate some to the cause, we'll take it and we'll incorporate it and we'll use it. But yeah, I think a simple drawing can do a lot. And also the nice thing about that is we ran out of time. So like at the end of our session, we were about ready to get into this kind of big battle, or so it seemed, an ambush we had set up. And so we were able to like take pictures of the map with our phones. And now when we start again next Tuesday, we just set it up, put it all in the right position and everything. So you know, it's easier for the DM. The DM doesn't have to make notes because think about all the things that were exchanged at that table. There's six players, right? So wait, yeah, there's six of us. And so there's seven minds at that table. And we were all talking about plans and counter plans and who's going to do what in what order and that sort of thing. And if we have a gap of a week and we come back to this without having taken notes, I know Mike's a really big note taker, but even then, like, would we have started exactly where we left off if we were doing theater of the mind?
Hmm.
How interesting that would be. And that's fine. You don't have to get that precise, but it's anything that makes the DM's job a little bit easier, gives the DM more bandwidth to concentrate on other aspects of DMing, fleshing out NPCs or making sure the story makes sense or incorporating certain elements when other elements get like bypassed, because it happens. Sometimes you have like a hook that's there in the story and the characters just blow right past it. And so
Hmm.
now, in order to get them onto the plot again, you're going to have to reintroduce that somewhere, maybe conceivably. And you got to remember to do that. Otherwise, you're looking at chapter two and you're going, well, wait a minute. Now this makes sense because they didn't pick up the hook from chapter one. So now, you know, so that's one of the things about sandbox and railroads and like railroading a sandbox, like how do you keep the players on track, especially if you're running from a book. And having the book there, like you did with Saltmarsh, like what's the value of like actually running it from a book? Like what are the obstacles and what's the value of that?
I I like running pre-published stuff. I mean, I do both. I'm doing homebrew now on my other night, and that's a lot of fun, but it's a lot more work, right? So there's a lot less mental bandwidth available for other things. It's very easy to like run out of material. I have whatever a backlog because I've been doing it for a while. But I like running from a book because I am less precious with things. It actually, the limitation of it all gives me more freedom because I am ready to start homebrewing at any given moment, right? Like, and I did a little bit in Saltmarsh. I mean, there's a lot of like little details. There were a couple big chunks that were like pure Ryan stuff. But if I didn't make the thing, then I have fewer expectations about how you're going to interact with it, and I have less invested in you bouncing off of it, right? Like it's much easier for me to hand you a boat at level one, level two, and be like, all right, I got two other books on the shelf that I can start running. If you want to sail off into the sunset, like we can go to Hot Springs Island. Like I've been thinking about that for years. There's 2 years worth of content in that thing. I didn't make. I have no investment in you. Like I want you to go there because it'd be fun to run, and I want you to have options, and I want to create an open world. But having books on the shelf allow me to do that much more efficiently. Because there's some weeks where it's like, all right, tell me where you're going so I can lay down the tracks in front of you to keep this train from derailing. And then life happens, and then it's a lot harder to keep things moving. Where it's like,
Yeah,
all right, I can read the book and like have an hour's worth of prep instead of 4 hours worth of prep when I'm short for time.
yeah, and I like the fact that you mentioned not being as invested in what I take away from that is that like I didn't sit here and create this scenario, my monsters, these NPCs that you were never going to meet because you turned right instead of left. And that kind of like mental flexibility, resiliency is one of those wonderful traits that I need to always keep fostering as a DM. Being ready to bounce when the players bounce. So because how many times did we talk last night about different things? So we're in this crypt, right? We walk in this like desiccated, dry crypt. We find these whites. We find these desiccated bones. Um, some of them been like gnawed on. Some of these crypts haven't been opened in hundreds of years. There's, and then all of a sudden we get into an environment where there's water and there's pipes and there's water elementals and even an aquan creature. And so, it's that kind of like, I don't know, if I wrote that, um,
Hmm.
it would be different than, here it is, it's presented, and what do you do with it? Like, we ran into these water, our party ran into these water elementals in this underground crypt. We never have expected that, right? And none of us speak Aquan. So, so what do we do, right? So if I'm a DM and I write that and I don't have a way out for the players that I didn't think about that in advance, right? Then I'm thinking to myself, oh, I in some way I failed, right? Like I should have blah 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 blah. But as it turns out, the bard was pretty cool. He tried to like communicate to them with
Hmm.
music and at least like convey an emotional state or a sense that something big was going to happen and got rewarded for it, which is pretty cool. They like reach down and pull out like a necklace, a diamond necklace, and give it to him. But also having an NPC in the next room who was able to speak Aquan, that helped. Like, so we rescue this gnome scholar, one of the four uh, objectives that we were given by the Lord Protector of Neverwinter. And so this gnome, we asked the gnome, do you know Aquan, right? And I think the DM, Craig, said on the fly, like, "Oh yeah, he speaks Aquan." So like that's a good solution for that, right? So having that kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And there is, we just made characters, or some of us leveled up characters. I just made a fresh level 10 character.
yeah. Tell.
I got all sorts of buttons to push, like I'm ready to use all my skills and spells and attacks and abilities. So like starting with a bang, little atmospheric, set the table like here's a graveyard, you know what to expect. Here's what you expect. Fight them. Get that out of your system. And now here's like the break in the wall to like some other thing that's also underground but not part of this funerary complex where what was it, the water clock guilds
Yeah.
had been working before the cult like discovered them down
Mhm.
here and cleared them out, but like some of their summons, I don't know, assistants were left remaining, and here's a neutral faction that could have been a combat too had we made different sorts of choices.
Mhm.
But he did a very good job of like projecting like they look at you and they're like wary and not just like roll initiative. Like this isn't necessarily a fight. It could be there's a challenge here communicating with these things, but if you can, we gained a lot of information from them. We had a whole strategy that we are like between talking to them and figuring some stuff out. We like what's happening next week is based on that interaction with the room. Had Craig spent hours like custom crafting that place and like creating the story of like that guild and the I always say Madrid and I don't know what the actual term is anymore for like the one elemental like djinn, the like the water djinn, whatever their names are.
Oh,
Um and the pipes and all this like mechanical like interactive stuff. There was I would say a fairly good chance that we went straight and never took that turn and like never interacted with that entire area. And had he
the area
devoted
where the
hours to
clock, where
crafting it,
Clockmaker was.
yeah, like we could have
Mhm.
easily like we found this there's a door with the cult symbol on it. Okay, what's behind that door? Stairs going down. Cool. If we were in a certain mindset, we would have been like, this is where the other hostages are. We're in a rush. Let's go. Whereas we explored it. But if you have to have I don't know. I really put a lot of effort into having the mindset where some content is disposable. Maybe
Mhm.
because it hurts so much when the players don't interact with it and you like spent so much energy into it. That's why like that's one of the arguments I have for like running pre-published stuff and then like adding to it is that if we hadn't gone down there, it would have hurt him a lot less. He didn't have a ton of writing on it.
Yeah,
That's me projecting a little bit, but I think that's true for most dungeon masters.
and there's a difference between running a campaign and running a one shot in a scenario. So
Mm,
like a lot of times what I find is I've got like 3 hours to run a one shot or I'm teaching a class and it's only an hour after school. So there's only so much progress we can make. And I try to like fit it into like chapters so they can, remember if we don't get back to it or if the kids separate in different groups, they can like go on with their lives and they don't have to come back to that story. So you know, for me, there's a lot of condensing, right? So there's a lot of like,
mm,
I read like a module and it's supposed to take 3 to 4 hours or sometimes 4 to 5 hours. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have, we're not going to be able to do that. So what do I do? Do I chop it in half? Do I just take the good parts? So that's what I do. I do like the Princess Bride kind of thing where I just take the
hmm
book and take the good parts and throw those in there because what would I want to see, And that's kind of selfish, but also using it as a filter because do I really want them to be sitting in the quest giver's room for half an hour when there's only an hour to play?
hmm
Maybe. I mean, if you want to just go shopping and quest, and equipment up, yeah, that's totally fine. You want to gear up before the mission, that can be fun. But I want to get something in there. I want to get some element of D&D in there. And yeah, that's one of the things that you mentioned, though. I want to, before I forget, you created a character from scratch. There were a lot of us have been playing these characters for a while. So, like, tell me a little bit about the logic of why you picked the character class or the character that you ended up creating. Like what informed that decision, you know, as a player, a new player coming to a table, because that's going to be an experience of a lot of people, is they're gonna be the newer player and they're gonna come to the table.
I'm a big advocate for considering what the rest of the party is. Not because you need party balance. It's not like a video game where you need the tank and the DPS and the healer or whatever, like perfect little rubric. I want to make sure I'm not stepping on people's toes and I'm filling in gaps. Um, so yeah, I mean, you sit down for a one shot with two rogues. Oh, cool, we're the rogue buddies. But you sit down with a campaign where you're two rogues. It's like, all right, well, I guess we're gonna roll dice to see who picks the lock, and then
Right.
we'll roll dice to pick the lock, or like whatever it is. So right off the bat, this I knew what four of you were doing. I don't want to be those classes. You could do interesting things by like playing opposite to type or like drilling down at subclass and spell selection to like differentiate characters, but whatever, that's a little more tricky, especially when you guys are in flux. I didn't know if people were going to change their whole character or spell selection or build out or like magic items. We're starting at level 10. It's a lot of moving pieces. Um, I also I went Asimar because I've never played one.
Mm,
Um, I was going to do a class that I never played, but I ended up going cleric because they're so versatile. You can adapt the spell list and really change the kind of cleric you are.
hmm
And over time, I can see what the party needs, like what's going to give my character the most opportunities to shine. But also, I'm a dungeon master main, right? Like I like being involved in other people's turns and just being more involved in the game in general. So I like support casters. I like bards and clerics and things where like I can like I cast guidance on your rogue who can't. I think you can't roll under a 30 for lockpicking or whatever. So it's like kind of a joke at level 10. But like the idea of yes, I have an incentive to pay attention to what you are doing
hmm
much more interesting to me than I am waiting for my turn to come around to do the one thing I do.
hmm
It's a simpler way to play, and it's some people's preferred method, but I like a character that can get into a lot of different things. Rogue, you're playing a rogue has a lot of skills, a rogue can do a lot. But again, bards and clerics, things that people maybe overlook at first because like, that's a healer. I don't want to play a healer. Well, there's no real healer in D&D. Buy a magic potion, buy a healing potion.
Yeah. But it comes in handy, like, I mean, pretty much like, okay, so here's the party for those who are out there that don't know it. So I mean, Mike's the longest running player in the group, and he's currently playing a druid, and he has some healing abilities.
Hmm.
And and then there's Xerix, who's played by Patrick. He's a paladin, so he has some healing abilities as well, and that's great. Um, I have none. My character as a rogue has absolutely none, except what I carry with me. And then,
Yeah, and you
yeah,
have
we got,
mobility and mage hand, and the ability to get up
yeah,
and back. So like you can just distribute better than most people.
yeah, but I don't have like, yeah, but I can't like lay on hands or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, so we got an artificer that just joined the group, Aiden. He just joined the group. He's a human artificer. And then we have a bard, human bard. Um, so he's kind of like support, although a lot of times he likes to just kind of hang out and play music, which is pretty cool. So he like sets the mood. And so we really needed like a cleric, I mean we really did. So that makes a lot of sense. So that actually was one of the reasons you picked cleric, or have you been wanting to play a cleric for a long time, like anyway?
I like clerics. You give uh you know, halfway to a wizard, but you have some god on your side, like
Mhm.
clerics are a little OP in a lot of ways. And I like them because they're versatile. You can make different kinds of clerics in a way that it's like harder to make different kinds of other classes. You
Okay.
know, wizards are kind of versatile in that sense. But yeah, I could have gone like frontline fighter. I could have gone, I've gone a little more like wizardy because I didn't know we had an artificer too. So like I made, all right, I got some healing capabilities. We are given an allowance of magic items. So I took a
Yes.
headband of intellect to
Okay.
bump all my int skills
I was
so
going to
that
ask you
I
which four did you
know
pick?
stuff.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I
the
took again, I went versatility. So I took the headband of intellect, which is like a suboptimal choice by some measures for a cleric who's all wisdom. Like, int could be my dump stat, but I wanted to make sure somebody had history, religion, those like int based. As a player, I like access to information, and as a person who's sympathetic to the dungeon master, I like to provide opportunities for the dungeon master to drop knowledge. So like I rolled a 31 on religion last night. I was like, okay, mission accomplished. Um,
wow.
what did I take? I took a ring of spell storage, which is always useful. And that was the rare that I took, and I'm thinking about swapping that out. But that was like that's almost like a placeholder, but that is always good. I took boots of Elvenkind, so I have advantage on stealth because I'm not super stealthy, and like I'm not wearing heavy armor, so I don't have disadvantage, but I don't have a high dex. What was the fourth thing I took? I forget off the top of my head. Oh,
Was it
Cloak of
all?
Protection, which is always good. Plus one
Yes.
AC, and then just plus one every save. Yes, please.
All saving rolls. Yeah. Yeah, I like the cloak of protection. I took two hand crossbows that are plus one, and then
Mm,
a ring of feather falling.
smart.
Yeah, that comes in handy for rogues. They get up on high places. They're like cats, they like to climb. And I'm going to incorporate that in my character. So, in fact, when we went into the crypt, before we even went into the crypt, we kind of like I had my character climb up onto one of the nearby crypts just to see if there was what the view from above looked like, and do that kind of like Batman kind of thing once in a while. So if you want to like have that kind of flavor, it's nice to have a safe way to get down without taking falling damage. And plus, I don't know how, I guess it informed me from what I played on Thursday where we had a steep, we went into a crypt in the Adventure League scenario, and there was like a 150-foot drop, and one guy had the spell Featherfall, so he cast that. The rest of us had to figure out a different way down this rickety staircase that ended up collapsing halfway down. And that was hilarious. Took way longer than the DM supposed it would have. So that's recent in my mind. So I thought, okay, we're going to do some dungeoneering here. I might need this. And um, yeah, so knowing that we were going to do Vecna, that's a great place for a cleric, right? Because clerics got, especially in
You know,
Asmar,
I
or did.
very actively. I mean, one short answer, yes. I would
Mhm.
assume, like, first thing we're fighting undead. It's like, okay, cool. See your undead. Um, what's interesting is at level 10, less effective,
Oh,
actually. 'Cause it's just you're facing bigger challenges. So like I imagine
mhm.
a lot of what we're facing are going to be turn undead proof. But to the best of my, and maybe I did it subconsciously, I guess. I'm open to that, but I tried to very actively not build a character. I built a character for the party, not the campaign,
Gotcha.
because that never feels great. The
Okay.
only thing I'll do with players is I'll try to like fine tune language, you know, and rangers to a degree, but even like less so now than the old ranger. But like, I want to make sure the players get a chance to use their stuff.
Yeah.
But that we were like, does anyone have Aquin? Like, you don't know what's coming up, right? We're an hour into this like undead themed Shadowfell campaign, and it's just like, oh, like these water elementals are like potentially a very important plot point. Can anyone comprehend languages, so like I shoot for versatility more than specificity,
Yeah.
but that's just my preference.
Yeah. And I think it's fun. I mean, it's fun to, for me, to develop the character as his experiences move along the campaign. So, for instance, when you were running Ghost of Saltmarsh, um, my rogue like ended up like sort of killing the captain, thought he killed the captain. So like he took the captain's coat. So he kind of like took on that personality of a sea captain, which was not part of his background. He doesn't have a sailor background. In fact, we had a character who did. And so it was one of those like, it was fun because he was at that point, that rogue was kind of a charlatan and it was perfect. So he had that imposter syndrome, right? So he was pretending to be a captain, but he kept asking the sailor with the experience, like, what what should I do now? It's like that kind of thing, or what should we do? And you know, those kind of like player dynamics, I like that. I like having the character evolve. I might have an intent at first, but I will allow my character to be shaped by circumstance. A really good one was when Bertram, who's no longer in our campaign because he moved away, um, Bertram's character witnessed the party almost get killed by giant snakes, right?
Mm,
So now then he was afraid of snakes. So like that kind of thing. Experiential repercussions, based on, customizing repercussions based on what happened. Uh, and that feels like it makes it feel like a novel. It makes it feel like there's movement of character, right? And that makes it feel more like a story for me.
absolutely. I'm way more interested in what this character is going to become than what they are to start, right? Like I walked in with some ideas, but Mike is the mini man. He was like, here's 16 minis. Do you want any?" Like he texted me like, "Here's a bunch of minis. Do any of these fit?" I was like, "Yeah, like I'm like a light cleric, so like I gave him a color scheme. Right? I figured that would help him
Okay.
limit it. He's
Yeah.
like, "Here's this guy." I was like, "Perfect." He's like, he's got I don't know what he's doing, scorching ray or something. He's got fire coming out of him. And he's got this crazy like pompadour, right? And it's a fantasy, so I'm
Oh.
like, all right, yeah, I have hair in my fantasy. So I was like, all right, this haircut says something about this guy. So I had this like, he's gonna be arrogant. He's the newcomer to the party. So he's like, yeah, clearly you've heard of me, right? Like, you guys were slumming it in like Saltmarsh. I was whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and that window didn't present itself, and it's much more interesting to be like playing off the other characters. It's like, oh, I'm rocking. I didn't know there was a artificer in this party, and like now I'm rocking next to Iron Man. Like my guy's interested in that. Like I'm interested in what you're doing. That's cool. One, now I have something to play off of that isn't just putting the onus on the dungeon master every interaction. Two, it's fun. Like, oh, cool. Like, oh, are
Hmm.
you a like? I was like, are you a plumber? Because you like went in and rolled 1 million on this like I don't even know this hydraulic press sort of situation that we were messing with that my guy has no insight on. It's like, oh, interesting. Like, cool. Yeah, I want to spin this wheel and see what happens. It's water pressure, you say? Okay, let's find out.
Yeah, the interaction between the characters, that's a lot of fun. And I think that's, I mean, ultimately we're playing a social game. It's, that camaraderie between human beings. We want to have fun, we want to laugh, we want to have a good time on a Tuesday night. And and certainly when we can vibe off each other's characters and hence and also off each other, there were a lot of laughs last night, and
Yeah.
there's a player that's only been there twice. Um, you're playing a character instead of DMing. Uh, one of the newer members of the group is now DMing. Uh, you know, that could be an awkward situation in some places, but didn't
Hmm.
feel that way at all last night, And and I think that's one of the things that I like about D&D is that, it brings people together. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very good point. Theoretically, last night could have, there was a lot of stress on the system, right? A new DM, I mean, he's not a new DM, but like running for the first time in a while, new campaign, level 10. Like, there's a lot of impulses. And there's also this like yeah, the dungeon master is a leadership role in some ways. So
Mhm.
like I don't know, coming into like again, I tried to like put effort into like this is not my table anymore. Not that it ever was in the first place,
Mhm.
but there are those like social pressures there that if you just decide to have fun, acknowledge that, like, leave room for that to be like, okay, this is here potentially, but also we're here to have a good time, and like we don't want to reinforce that. Let's have fun, and we did instantly.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. And there can be a that balance between like, okay, playing the game and socializing as friends and human beings, and that kind of like when you say leadership role, that's the type of place where the DM really gets to decide, like, okay, we're gonna play, and then okay, let's let this, let's talk about like last night when we met the water elementals. And here I am. I had this flashback to like this Futurama episode where Fry goes to this planet where it's blazing hot, but the creatures um, are made out of water, and he accidentally like drinks one and becomes
Oh
like
yeah,
the emperor, and
he drinks the
so
king or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So now he's the king. And yeah, so it's, when we met those water elementals, I was thinking about that. I didn't bring it up, but like potentially something like that, somebody brings up something like that, it can derail the movement of the game for the next 20 minutes as we all talk about our favorite Futurama episodes. But, 10 minutes worth of that might be fun. And then okay, let's get back on track. And so, yeah, as a DM, it's important to like kind of figure out that social dynamic also, And as a teacher, like when the kids are like taking an idea and running with it, it's like, sometimes they get a little silly, right? Sometimes they're bringing in like different ideas and they're talking about their favorite memes or they're talking about the next Jurassic Park movie that's going to come out, Lost World movie that's going to come out, or whatever. Sometimes you just like step back and say, okay, this is the point, right? The point
Mm,
here is like not to teach them how to play the perfect D&D game. The point is that they're talking to each other and they're laughing and they're having a good time and like that's what this is the conduit for that, right? So,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, it's good stuff. So, all right, so what you got like that you're holding back that you want to like, you know, in your character build that you really want to dish out? Do you have some kind of like crazy weapon combination or spell combination that you're like thinking about?
So, divine intervention in 2024 is now once a day, any fifth level spell, no material components, no spell slot, and that's bananas. So like
Yeah.
there's some just so the and, up to fifth level spell. So I have any cleric spell like ready to go in the chamber, even if it costs 1,000 gold pieces. It costs me nothing. So that looking for those opportunities to cast those spells where it's like super situational, where it's just like, oh man, we killed this guy. We're supposed to talk to him. Well, if I take a long rest, I can prepare, speak with dead tomorrow, and it clears all of that. So like, I always have whatever greater restoration, like all these spells that you don't necessarily want to burn your preparation on. But when you need them, you want to have them. So there's a lot of cool things in the pipe. Starting from going from 0 to 10, I my whole character sheet is shiny and new. So like,
Right.
I have Asimar racial traits that came online at level 1 that I've never used before. So it's just like
Yeah. So,
everything's appealing to me.
yeah, what's it like playing like an angel, basically, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to be like, all right, what's my background and like I went back and forth about like am I gonna mess with necrotic, right? Because there's a lot of like Toll of the Dead and like necromancies on the cleric spell list. Like, am I celestial? I'm only gonna pump out radiant damage. So it's like, all right, I kind of did the Game of Thrones thing where like Paylor, light domain, light cast a shadow, cool. I'm allowed to do
Mm.
necrotic damage.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's interesting to walk in. Yeah, so I have wings in my back pocket, which is going to be, I think that there's like three things you can do, especially at high levels now. The two of the options don't really aren't going to pay off most of the time. It's like a little bit of healing, it's a little bit of radiant damage. Um, it's a little bit of oh no, fear. I can do like a fear thing, but the DC
Mm.
is super low. So yeah, I can fly for a minute, which I'm gonna forget about, but in 6 months we'll be like, oh wait, hold on, I can get up there. I have wings if I wanted.
This is a challenge. This is a challenge. And one of the things that I'm doing to, in the challenge I'm talking about is at level 10, there's so many abilities that you have. There's so many cool things you can do in combat and outside of combat. I forget what I can do. So what I've been doing is usually I just use my phone and use, I always have this with me. So I'll look at D&D Beyond and have my character sheet there. So I can always play no matter, I can always optimize it if I have a minute or two somewhere. I can like look at it and see what, but I brought a blank character sheet last night and I started to transcribe it because I want to make some logical sense of like I even did like a step by step like battle order. What am I looking for? What am I trying to do here? So like for me, I have like the alert talent.
Mm.
So that means I get a +4 to my initiative, which means I usually am going to roll a pretty high initiative. Not always, but and I can swap my initiative with anyone else in the initiative order. Why the heck wouldn't you just keep the highest initiative if you roll really high? Well, because if I give it to the paladin who's going to beef up his armor class, and he's going to run in and into melee, then I can stay back and fire my hand crossbow, um, or plural actually, and get sneak attack because he's within 5 feet of one of my enemies. Um, and then if I hit on that because I took the crossbow, no. So you take the crossbow feat. So I took that instead of an ability score upgrade. And what that lets me do is all kinds of stuff like ignore reloading, ignore being in melee, that having disadvantage. But it also lets me like get my attack bonus, my damage bonus on my offhanded um, shot. So I can do 2 shots. I can use my bonus action as a shot. So I can shoot twice. Don't have to worry about reloading. Um, and now I've got another chance to get sneak attack damage. And if I'm attacking the character that I or the monster that I hit with the first shot, that's the property of the crossbow has Vex, and in D&D 2024, Vex lets me have advantage on the second attack. And for a rogue, that's huge because now you get a chance to possibly, you have instead of a 1 in 20 chance, you have a 1 in 10 chance of doubling your damage, including the sneak attack damage. And that can be devastating. So having that like so in order to remember all that, like writing a flow chart basically. Like what am I looking for? I'm looking for advantage on my first attack. How do I get advantage on my first attack? Well, there's like 6 different ways that I've found so far that can happen. And that's its own video itself. And then what happens when that happens? And then and just having those scenarios laid out because as you said last night, you thought there was a minimum I could roll on like a sleight of hand check, and there is. And I totally forgot that I have reliable talent, which means that if I roll under a 10, I can make my roll a 10 if I'm proficient in that talent. Totally forgot that last night. So, like, that's important, but there's so much to remember. So, for me, having a physical character sheet, or at least going through the process of writing a physical character sheet,
Mm. Mm.
is going to help me to like solidify that in my mind. And that's the other thing about being a DM is you're running all these NPCs, you're running all these monsters, like, that's a lot of information. And sometimes when you're a player, when you're a player, you can focus on like your character, but I already have all that information in my head. I gotta either clear a new space for it or like move it to the front, and it can be challenging. And especially like you run another campaign, or you run that virtually tonight, right?
Mm-hmm,
Online.
mm-hmm.
So like, there's a lot of stuff going on in your brain too. So keeping that separate, you know, is uh is a task.
Yeah, it's easier maybe just because of muscle memory to like switch out monsters. I would find it very difficult to be a player in multiple campaigns at high level. I'll put it that way. Like, yeah, all right, I'll run a third level, whatever, and switch them out every night. But like a 10th level with a caster and a spell list, like I didn't get a chance to print out my character sheet, but I wrote everything I wanted to have on the piece of paper in front of me. I know I have dark vision. I don't need that in front of me.
Right.
I can use D&D Beyond to give me my ability scores, my skills, my AC, my HP, whatever. Though don't need that right away. Here's all the stuff I'm gonna forget. Here's all of the things I can do. Here's
Hmm.
all, here's like all of my traits and features, all of my attacks, all of my spells on one page instead of like different tabs or different
Right.
boxes intermingled with other stuff. It's like, here's all the decision points. Here's all the buttons I can push. Here's all the stuff I can do, including the stuff that I will forget about. Like that celestial whatever it's I don't even remember what it's called because I wrote it down. I don't need to, but it's on the sheet that I can sprout wings because I went for Asmar at level 1. Cool. Yes. All right. It's in front of me. I wrote it down so it's more concrete in my mind and it's on a piece of paper in front of me in my handwriting without other noise around it.
Hmm.
Whatever works for you, experiment and do it and find what helps you at the table.
Yep. That's a good point. All right. Well, our hour is up, and this has been a great discussion. It's awesome to like play with you at the table as a player, and that was a fun experience. And even like where we located our position in the game store was new, and seems like it might work. So that's kind of cool too. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming up. I hope you all will join us next week and in the weeks to come as we explore Vecna Road to Ruin. No, Eve of Ruin. I gotta get that right.
We're
Eve of
we're gonna
Ruin.
turn it into like a Mad Max style campaign.
It's Ruin Eve. It's like Christmas Eve. Vecna Eve. All right. Well, we'll see you all in the next one. Ciao.